It is 5:30 and we want to get the meeting going, but we realize we're going to have more guests come in as we go. First up is approval of the minutes. Board, can I have a motion for that?
Second.
Any discussion on that at all?
There is one correction that Aaron had pointed out to me that I will make in the final version. In the bottom of the first page in 5A, third sentence, third line, discussed about reinstating the canceled May 8th meeting. Reinstated is a word that doesn't need to be hyphenated, so I will make that correction in the final version of the minutes.
All right. All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion is approved, or minutes are approved. Public comment. Do we have anybody who would like to make public comment who is not here for Circuit of the Northwest? Please come forward.
So good evening, board and Mr. Walton. As you might recall,
Wait one second. Let's make sure that you can be heard on the video. What are we using? That's fine? We're good? Okay. Thank you.
I can talk louder.
All right.
I've been known to.
Good.
Anyway, I'm Carla Boughton with the City of Poulsbo, as you probably recall.
Yes.
I'm representing the PERC project, and as I understand is being allowed, I am here tonight to provide you some supplemental information for our project. This is responding directly to the questions that you had at our proposal during our presentation, so nothing brand new, but responding to the questions that the board had. So I appreciate that, and thank you, and look forward to the process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Gary?
I just want to thank you guys for doing this. It's a lot of responsibility. You're responsible for a lot of money. There are a lot of good causes. There are a lot of good things. You're putting in a lot of time, and I just want to let you know the public appreciates it, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. On to number 4. Mike, you want to handle this?
Yes, sir.
And everybody who's here, there's food over here. I can attest to that the chicken, skewers are good. I've had a bite of that, but there's also some pork sandwiches, so help yourself.
All right. The income that we received from the sales tax in the month of March was $125,900 and change. That was up only 1.8% over last year. So we do have a couple of points now showing some up and down growth. Single-digit growth in November of last year, in February of this year, and now in March. That's 2 months in a row with single-digit growth. So, as I expressed before, there may be a cause for some concern as a slowing in the economy. This may be an indicator. We'll continue to keep an eye on that. So the debt service subtraction of $70,000, leaving 55.9. Our expenses were $18,000 and change. So our net to cash for the month of March was $37,900. If you look at the sheets on which the financials are reported, behind that cover sheet, the main thing is on the multicolored sheet behind it, shows what the balances are in the various accounts and funds that we move money around in. That shows that the balance in the 977 fund, which is our main general fund, is up to $2.7 million. And as you'll probably recall, we have $500,000 of that committed to the Parks Department for whatever project they finally settle on and come back to us for. Right now, they asked for that money for turf on Logie 1, the main baseball field, but they still haven't got the rest of their package together yet. The other $500,000 is what we are paying for the architectural work for Circuit of the Northwest and the Port of Bremerton to manage that. And there will be an invoice to approve shortly. Any questions about the?
So Mike, we're committed, you might say, for $1 million out of the 2.7.
Correct. So we still have some jingle on our jeans before we get to the bond sales.
How long does the county get to use that 500,000? Did we give them a date that they had to have their matching money by, or? I know.
The county? Oh, no, we hadn't given them a specific date in which they had to put that package together. At the time that we approved that, they were going out for grants from the state. I don't know what their success was, but they also had to get some private funding to get some match in that package. So they haven't come back to us yet and said, we've got all the pieces in place and we're ready to go. So when they do that, then that's earmarked, but it's not transferred to their account yet.
So can we get an update on that at some point?
Sure.
Yeah, like that.
I will ask Billy to give us an update. That's salary for you and Darren.
There's 3 spaces, we only need 2 signatures.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the financials?
That's the only blanket voucher is the one for the salary.
No.
There's
I
a
have
couple
two
of,
blanket, that's just the salary agreement. Okay, we have 2 blanket vouchers for consideration tonight. One is the standard operational expenses, and there is the total amount is $8,122 and change. The biggest item of that is the legal services of $6,936, and that's higher than usual because of the effort that's being put in on the public records request.
So you need a motion.
Certainly do.
I move to approve the blanket voucher in the amount of $8,122.33.
I'll second.
Any discussion on any of those items? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm not opposed, but I did have a question. So this thing about the auto pay monthly, I mean, I don't understand how that works.
This is set up so that because this has been approved by the board previously and is paid, and it's the same amount each month, it can be set up with the county to have that automatically set aside and delivered to them. So if you guys would like to see that on the blanket voucher.
So we've already approved just the bigger amount and we pay it
Correct,
a month at a time?
yeah.
No, I just didn't understand it.
Yeah, just wanted to, have the amounts there so that you're aware of what is being paid automatically each month as that comes up. Okay, that's been approved. The second blanket voucher cover sheet that you have in your packets is for the second installment of the Phase 2 work that's being done on the Circuit of the Northwest planning that's being performed by the Port of Bremerton and their contractors under our ILA. And there are two pieces to that. One of it is the consulting part of it, where that's their preparation with the professional consultant or contractors that are doing the work. The second portion of it is the professional services for the work itself. The first item is $16,976. The professional services part is $60,525 for a total of $77,321.
That doesn't seem like it adds up to me. I know it's just me. Seems like it should be a little bit more. And you guys want
It doesn't add up.
Thank you for
doesn't
checking
add
that.
Yeah, I think it should be 77.45, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it looks like it, so
Yep.
what did I do wrong? Okay, 16,976 and 60,525. Oh, I see the problem. It's the port's error when they added it up. I didn't re-add it, I took
It's-
the total right off of their invoice.
It's the rule of 9.
Pardon?
It's the rule of 9.
Yes,
So 77,501.
Somebody transferred it.
Yeah, that looks better.
Good job, Pat.
So are the numbers broken down correct, and just the totals incorrect?
the numbers, the individual numbers are correct,
Okay.
it's the total that's not correct. So it is,
77,501.
no, hang on a minute. No, it's my error, I apologize. The invoice has 16,796, and I have 16,976. I transposed two numbers. The number is correct, 77,321. I have two transposed numbers in the first number. It's 796. That is my error.
Okay, can we have a motion for the total of 77,321?
I move to approve the payment of the voucher for $77,321.
Second? Bill?
Second.
Yep. All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Okay. That goes around for signature. Those coming back. Oh, that's the minutes that need to be signed.
Mike, anything else from agenda number 5 that you want to say before we turn it over to Circuit of the Northwest?
Let me take a quick look in, yeah. As you and pretty much everybody in the audience is aware of by now, there are 4 main goals that the PFD is looking for in their projects. And that is economic development, innovation in the design and implementation, multiple use of the facilities so that there's a wider benefit from that facility, and effective use of both public and private money. There are several other factors that we've identified, and there is an evaluation form that is being used by the directors to make notes about what they like or dislike, or what should or should have more questions. Joel Cohen was so nice as to actually fill out the evaluation sheet for the Circuit of the Northwest. So you may or may not want to use that to your benefit or not, but that is available to you. The other thing was last month when we approved the first invoice for the engineering and architectural work, there was a question or a comment that brought up that said that the agreement that we had with the port, our participation and reimbursement for the work was dependent on the modification of the lease with CNW that made the Public Facilities District a party in the lease and a party to be held harmless in the case of any problems. Anyway, also in your packet is that modification to the lease. So it was based on that I presented the second increment of the reimbursement. With that said, the only other thing is an item on there is a discussion about site visits to any of the sites. There was an invitation to visit one of the sites, and we declined to do that unless we had made the commitment to visit all of the sites. That's something that can be arranged, but as we experienced in trying to find attendance by all the directors for a meeting in early May, it was almost impossible to get 5 or more of you in one room at one time in the first half of May. So that's the two parts of it. It's desirable to visit the sites, but it's going to take time in order to do that, because there are now 7 different sites that we could visit, but it's up to the board if you want to take the time and effort to visit all of the sites while we were in the process of deliberating on which ones are to be selected and over what length of time. So that's open for discussion.
Yeah. What would you like to speak to that?
I will. I think we ought to visit all the sites. We're giving out lots and lots of money, and we ought to see where the potential recipients, what the properties look like, and see exactly what's going on there, what the infrastructure looks like, the roads, the sewers, the utilities, what's it adjacent to. I think we need to do it.
Do we run into the issue of no more than 3 of us at a time? Otherwise, we have to post it that we're doing it?
Probably.
Is it possible? Go ahead.
I'll have Brian check into that but since these are sites on which we would be deliberating, and there may be some discussion while we're on site, it's probably preferable not to have more than 3 of us present at a time, so that it doesn't constitute a quorum, and that if somebody makes a decision, that winds up being binding on the board.
Can we commit that we're not going to make any decisions during the visit? I mean, We have to have some common sense about
Let's
how we do it.
let's put that question to Brian and get a ruling on that.
Okay.
But I agree, it would be good for all of us to be there at the same time. Timing on that, would you like to do the site visits before we have our discussion? So right now we are slated for, what is the date in June to have our kind of discussion of all the projects?
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
I mean, wife and I have driven through the Paulsville site, and there's really nothing to see except the hillside and the view. And I don't know about Port Orchard either. It doesn't appear to me that there's anything to see. It's because they're not started anything yet. So other than the map, I think this will delay considerably a decision on any funding. And I think that is a matter of concern, at least some of the projects.
The first meeting is on the 10th of June, and the second on the 24th.
Okay.
So Mike, I see on the agenda, it says our next meeting, May 20th.
Correct.
Oh, did I read it wrong?
No, that's correct.
So is that,
Aaron asked about the first meeting in June, not the next meeting. But yes, we do have a meeting scheduled for the 20th of May.
And did we figure out if we have a quorum even for that?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Let's confirm that. I will be here May 20th. Who else will be here?
I will.
I will.
Okay.
But Pam won't be.
Aaron.
Aaron,
I'm sorry, Aaron.
you can call me Pam.
She won't be here either.
Where'd I get Pam?
So circling back to
I
visiting
won't be
this,
here either.
so Tom won't be here either. But circling back to visiting the sites, because I agree, I think it's very helpful, and it would be nice to be there with everybody. But if we can't,
Yeah, even though there's nothing to see
Yeah.
at most of them, at least you have a chance to envision
yeah.
how it's supposed to work.
So if there's properties where we can meet people there, can we get the contacts for them if we wanted? Because my schedule's crazy all through May. And so if I can grab an hour to run to one project, if there's somebody there that I can talk to, or, I mean, some of them I don't need to meet anybody. But
You want to do a road trip together where we all pile, go from one place to another, hit them all in one afternoon?
it's potential, yeah.
See if that's possible with Brian too.
Yeah.
Or if that constitutes a meeting and how that is seen.
Okay?
And we'll just drive from one site to the other and go to all of them.
I'd rather let Mike schedule them than me schedule them myself.
Well, I will first have to notify all of the project teams that we want to do it, and figure out with them what the logistics of that's going to be. Is Carla Broughton still in the audience?
Yep, she is. That corner.
Yep.
Yeah. How would we arrange visiting the site in Paulsville? Who would arrange that? Would that be you?
Yep.
Okay. I'll get to talk to you.
So how about we do it in this order? How about we contact Brian, see if we can do it all together, if we need to do it separately,
Yep.
and then put an email out to all of us and see how we want to schedule it. If we want to schedule it all together, where we do it all in one day, or what is going to work logistically and timing wise.
Yep.
And then we can make a decision on if that's going to happen hopefully before our June meetings, so that we can not delay the decisions any longer, or what we need to do.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Yeah, because the more of that we can do between now and June, even with one meeting in May, the more of that we can get done during that period of time, the better. So I will see what I can do.
All right. Ready to move on to item number 6?
It is approaching 6 o'clock, which is when I told the people from the Port of Bremerton and Circuit of the Northwest. So it would seem an appropriate time.
All right, Brian?
Yeah, thank you, board, for having us back again.
So you can stay there, or you can move up to the front, whichever is convenient. Is the lighting all right? Do you want it lower or higher?
This is fine.
What's going to work with you?
This is fine.
Okay.
It's good.
All right.
Work with it. Well, thanks for having us back again. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. There's been a lot of developments in Circuit of the Northwest over the past year that has changed for the better, and we're excited to share some of that with you tonight. I'm Brian Nilsson, and I've been in this county for 49 years. Operated a business with my uncle, Brothers Power Sports. You might have heard of it. I also manage a 119-acre lease with the Port of Bremerton. And during that time, we've expanded the use. We do fundraisers, we do concerts, we do motocross, we do driver skills training, we do off-road motorcycle races, we do all kinds of things out there. And we do a lot of public training too. You're going to hear about that tonight. We do police training. We do 15 police departments. We do 3 fire departments. We have 24 public partners out there. And that's a big reason why we're here tonight. I'm excited for you to hear the latest developments on our planned regional multi-use project that is being master planned for public and private use. My team has been working hand in hand with each stakeholder involved with CNW's second phase of development to ensure we are adhering to their needs while simultaneously meeting the criteria set forth by the BFD. CNW is heavily supported with 24 public users and 17 community users totaling 41 user groups. CNW has collected 1,500 names that have pledged their support in moving our regional center across Highway 3. As mentioned before, CNW will be funded 70% from private means and 30% from public funds. Tonight you will hear from some interested potential equity partners. My owner's representative, who specializes in capital finance, has an equity offering memorandum ready for equity solicitation. However, the terms of the equity is dependent on PFD involvement. That changes with the term sheet, to be clear. Tonight you will hear from Sergeant Merrill as he explains the need for training grounds for the 24 public agencies. This area will be located within the infield of CNW and will also be used for community events. Currently, public use is up over 50% in 2018, and during the last month's pre-development meetings, we've identified even more public uses for CNW in the future. You will also hear from our public sponsor in the Port of Bremerton. CNW will operate on 232 acres of Port of Bremerton land. CNW and the Port share a productive working relationship managing the current 119-acre site, which will go away, and that's why we're here tonight. I want to thank the Port for their commitment in moving our 41-user regional center across Highway 3 with a favorable 50-year lease. Economic data will be presented, and our membership plan will be touched on as our final membership documents are ready from our motorsports attorney from Charlotte, North Carolina. We also will review the need for skilled labor in our county. There's a tremendous skills gap that we think we have a solution for. Mark Anderson is here tonight from CK Schools to talk a little bit about that. We plan on housing a STEM technology lab, working with Congressman Kilmer's office and the Port of Bremerton on grant opportunities. We have Eric Bood from a $6 billion OEM. Thanks for coming, Eric. Eric's going to explain how a OEM could utilize Circuit of the Northwest. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to my owner's rep, Joel Cohen and Andy Girdham. Between Joel and Andy, they've worked on, managed, designed, built over 19 road courses in North America. We're very lucky to have Joel's group retained for this project, and I couldn't imagine a more professional group to work with. So thank you guys. Joel flew in from Florida. Andy flew in from Indianapolis. So thanks for coming, guys. Joel.
Thank you, Brian. My name is Joel Cohen. I'm chairman of the Joel Cohen Group. I also would echo Brian's thoughts. Thank you to Michael Walton, executive director, and to the board and how professionally you've treated the process. I give a background to the public that's here tonight. I was called in December of 2017 by Brian about this project and quickly got on a plane and visited with Brian and saw a site. It was the most beautiful piece of real estate that I had seen in 3 decades of doing what I do. Quickly was retained by Brian, and the first advice that we gave Brian before he spent a dollar bill was to get a market demand study done, a feasibility study, as any good business prudently would do. Certainly.
It was too late.
What's that?
He'd already spent.
No, he
a lot
didn't.
of money before that.
Brian did. Yeah, it's good. Thank you, Mike. He did spend a lot of money, his own money. He has a land use permit and he has a lease with the Port of Bremerton. So that was money well spent. He has close to $750,000 of his own money invested in this at this point. But the first decision was to find a market demand study. And we vetted many companies, and I'd like to lead off the meeting tonight with the gentleman who's the author of the market demand study, and that's the founding member of Frost Motorsports and the author, Tim Frost. Tim, if you could please present some updated information and get everybody up to speed on the market demand study. Thank you, Tim.
Good evening, board, audience members for this. Appreciate the honor to come back and meet with you for that. I believe we were here in late September to present our findings to the board to look at it from various aspects, from a market demand study, economic impact study, a cost and financial basis, and then also from a community benefit standpoint. So fast forward 6 months from when we were here last to kind of give you a snapshot about, obviously there's going to be other members here talking about the progress that they've made on various aspects of the development. But from an industry perspective and from a numbers perspective, the industry for the market that this facility is going to go through and serve, primarily road racing, off-road, and manufacturer one, still remains strong. From a participant standpoint, we had our industry's largest trade show in Indianapolis in early December, and the number of buyers and manufacturers and suppliers at that trade show were very, very strong. At the same time, we host an annual event called the Racetrack Business Conference, where we get various stakeholders from around the United States and Canada and also across the world met to kind of discuss what were the trends and what was happening at their facilities and the segments in which they serve. And at that standpoint, everybody felt that the demand still continued strong into 2019 as we speak right now. So basically what we're seeing is the marketplace here, specifically even in the Northwest, remains strong for participant-based forms of motorsports that are out there. The demand from both the promoter standpoint, the user standpoint, and then other industry stakeholders, which may include the manufacturers, the OEMs, the clubs, and the other ones still remain strong for that. So anyways, we've got an exhaustive document, which you guys have had in your records from last fall. It still remains there. And again, look forward, if any questions come up during the proceedings about the study or anything else like that, we'd be more than happy to go through and address those needs there. So thank you very much, Joel.
Thank you, Tim. I think that I wouldn't be here tonight if that market demand study wasn't returned where it showed a viable and sustainable business for Bryan in the Circuit of the Northwest. So thank you, Tim, for flying all the way in from Chicago and giving us a market update. At this time, I would like to introduce our stakeholder, Porter Bremerton. Axel Stracheljohn, if you could join me. Axel is the District 3 Commissioner. He is our sponsor. He is our leaseholder. He is a supporter of our project. And I would like to give him a chance to speak on behalf of the Port of Bremerton. Thank you, Axel.
Thanks, Joel. Good evening, board. Good evening, directors. Audience, thanks for coming to support this evening. A couple of highlights. Kind of you guys are going to get a lot of information tonight, but I just want to give you some of the higher points. Just to be clear, this is not a new project. It was somebody made a comment to me last week that this is a new project. This has been underway for 7 years already. And Brian and his people that he's worked with, they've got over $300 million into this thing. So it isn't something that just came up in the last 2 years, 18 months. It's been really worked on. It is at the point now we're ready to shovel ready. So the permits are done, all the flags are green, the thing's ready to go. And it's probably one of the only projects in our region that's really shovel ready with all the effort that Brian's put into it. For those that don't know the facility, it's been in existence over 50 years right now. It serves various venues. One of the big venues it serves that you hear about tonight is it helps to give training for 24 of our first responder organizations, different organizations throughout the region. Those are the people that show up at your house, middle of the night, weekends, help your family, friends, neighbors in that time of need. And we need to be sure that we continue that facility for those people so our community is safe and well trained. Port of Bremerton, as you know, is the largest industrial center west of Seattle. With the build-out going on the other side of the sound, we are right in the growth pattern, and we're right in a great position for growth for this type of facility to come to us as well. With the leaders in economic development in our region, the Port of Bremerton, although we have a district, we have no boundaries. We realize that what we do at the Port of Bremerton affects every single individual in our community, in Kitsap, all the way from Bainbridge Island to Oahu. The people that work and operate at the port, they live in your neighborhoods, they live in your communities, they provide for their families. And that's what we do at the Port of Bremerton, is that we provide the opportunity for the economic growth of this entire region. We have no boundaries and no parameters on that impact. In the case of the circuits, Port of Bremerton recognizes the tremendous opportunity and economic impact that this facility has and will bring to our region. Tonight you've got myself, we've got both our other commissioners, our CEO here this evening. We totally are 100% believing in this project, and we support Brian and circuits all the way. Our dedication and commitments right there. First responder training, building out, adding jobs to the port, to the industrial center, to our communities. STEM education facility for our kids, they're up and coming. This is a facility that's unlike any other that's totally in existence today. And we have the golden opportunity in which to seize it and move forward with it. In the end, it's going to provide a return to the taxpayers in all of our communities. Again, all the way from the north end of the county to the south end. At the end of the day, you're going to see that this project checks every single box. It checks all of the commitments and all the check boxes that the utilities district has for providing funding and that return that you guys need, and as well as in your designated institutions. So at the end, it's a true economic impact. It's a positive impact. It's going to serve every community we live in and we work in. At the end of that, we at the port will be happy to extend an open invitation to you to tour the facility. Our staff is at the ready when you want to come out as a team or individually, and we're happy to facilitate that for you. So if you want to work through Brian, that's fine. If you'd like to go direct to the port, we'll be happy to show that to you. So with that, there's a lot of information coming up tonight, but thanks for your time, your consideration. And like I said, the port believes in this project, and it's going to truly be the economic impact that we all need in each of our communities, from the north end to the south end. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Axel. I would also like to thank the CEO, Jim Rothman, who's here tonight, his staff, Fred Salisbury, the COO, and Arna Bacher, who couldn't be here tonight, Director of Business Development. Been an absolute pleasure to work with that type of public partner, just as the PFD has been. So thank you for your attendance tonight and your comments, Axel. Now I'd like to get into the presentation that we prepared that I did send to the Executive Director. We did make a few tweaks, which you're familiar with sometimes. Happens on the long walks in the morning, but I have someone introduced. It's an integral part of our team. His resume has been presented to you. He brings a component. I think he's probably the best suited person that I could select to join our team at a critical time after the market demand study was returned. He is a director of design. He is the co-project manager of phase 2. It's underway now, and his name is Andrew Gurdon. So Andy, if you could join us and walk through his PowerPoint. Michael said that I can't. I do have hard copies for the board to follow, but Andy Gurdon, please proceed. Thank you very much.
I'll let you get a chance to get those to the board. I only get called Andrew by my mother or at these meetings.
I've got the same line every time.
That is.
This is an update.
Anybody talks to me, it's Andy, okay?
PowerPoint that I gave you earlier, was in your Manila folder, is the CNW presentation. So you can follow along the PowerPoint through this.
Okay, does everybody have them? Okay, so the data that we're going to go through here is in the packets. I'm going to step through it pretty quick. I don't want to bore everybody with all the details. We'll give you a chance to ask questions again later. So as you're going through the packets, you should be able to follow through the slides just as I'm going through them. A couple of the points, I'm going to make some pretty bold statements, so I'm going to probably stop at those and kind of reiterate them over and over. But inevitably, this is really about an update for where we are, where we're going, what the project really is. Because I think there's some misconceptions out there on what this project really is. We tend to focus on some kind of public, kind of high-profile type pieces of it, when that's really not the case. Well, let me step into this, and we'll kind of I'll make my bold statements as we go through. So the purpose here is really to get started into talking about the stakeholders, talking about this being an existing regional event center. We'll go through the charrette concepts that have come up. About 3 weeks ago, we held a charrette. It was a 2-day charrette to kind of go through what needs to be at the facility, what the demands are for that. As you go through that packet, we'll see some programming for buildings and potential buildings and uses that are out there. And we'll see how the motorsports really lends itself to other elements. So motorsports by itself is a technology-driven area. And you'll see how that goes into other elements of the design and what we're going to be doing. So, and you'll see the public-private benefits for this. EVOC, the STEM, gun range, motorsports facilities that we're showing at the facility, and how it's a public recreation and entertainment center. We'll talk more about that.
What's EVOC?
It's Emergency Vehicle Operations Center. So, motorsports lends itself to those training centers really well because of the large open spaces, because of what the high speed and the safety that's involved in motorsports. This trains police, fire departments, and all those groups really well on those centers. And we'll talk more about that. So, okay, this is the existing master plan that we started out with. I think everybody's seen this, so I won't spend too much time on it. Pretty basic. We haven't changed too many elements per se, but we've added quite a bit of detail to it. We're talking about this center really being a transfer of the existing regional event center to a new location. As we talked about, Brian talked about before, his existing center over by the airport is no longer viable. It has to be moved, so it'll go across to here is what we're proposing. So, and this is a really good image. Really shows what's out there right now. It shows where the existing open areas were, some of the landfill areas that took place. It's a good image that shows all that. But this is talking about the existing regional event center, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about that. These are the clients that are currently using the existing center. You see, it's a pretty extensive list. And you'll see it's got a lot of different police departments, different fire departments, even the coroner. You've got things like, all the different police departments. You've got, the Bainbridge Fire Department, you got Poulsbo, you got all these different groups that are using it. Kitsap Transit, the Sheriff's Department. We'll talk more about that as we go on. So you really have the corporate clients and the public clients. This really lends itself to what we're talking about. A mixed-use facility that's public and private based. So that's what we're really kind of getting further into here as we get into this slideshow. And that's really out of focus, but I'll just lead you through it. This is kind of the new master plan after the charrette. What we're doing here is kind of showing what the public and private facilities are. I think this is really where the misconceptions have come in to date. We talk about this being a private club, and it's not a private club. What it really shows here is, what it really shows is that the dark green is the private areas. Those are the only private areas that exist. The rest of this, the light green, is all public space. It's all public use. So as we start talking about this being a regional event center, and one of the key concepts being public use, you can see how much of this is public use. In fact, as you look at the numbers, what you get to is $24 million of this is really facilities that are open to the public to enjoy. Now, how do we get to that? We'll talk more about that. Because it can be events at that location, or the groups can actually get out and use these facilities. Or they can be spectators of sporting events and things like that. So this is one of the key elements. In fact, I talked about the bold statements that I was going to make. And that's one of them right there. That the public facilities are $24 million of the total bill of this facility. The private facilities are only $11 million. And in fact, the bolder statement than that really is that we don't want any money for the private facilities. In fact, the private facilities are going to support everything else. So as you talk about creative ways for the facility to be used and financed, that's a pretty creative way. The dark green is supporting everything else. And the money for the public input is really where the light green is. And you'll see what that means is we're looking at different things like EVOC, different open centers, conventions, conferences, all different types of facilities that can use that. So like I said, we're not asking for any money to build the dark green. And it will support everything else. This is, as we went through the charrette, we started getting into the breakout of different buildings. And these are some examples, some of which you've seen. On top we have the clubhouse. That is a private facility. And that will be funded with private funds, not with public funds. And that number we showed before, the $24 million, you'll never see that asked for. So we're not asking for anywhere near that. So, but we'll get to that later on what the ask truly is. We have a number of different facilities. You'll see some in here that are really interesting facilities. The STEM Center we'll talk about here in a little bit. The EVOC training we'll talk about as well. We have some other people talking about that. We have people talking about the OEM Center. And this is another bold statement because we've actually already had OEMs on site visits. So,
what does OEM stand for?
Yeah, I do that, don't I? So whether it's EVOC or OEM, I do that. This is original equipment manufacturer.
Pardon me?
This is an original equipment manufacturer.
Okay, like, name somebody.
It could be a car manufacturer. It could be a motorcycle manufacturer. It could be all different types of groups. They've already been on site, and we have interest. It's not done. I don't want to represent that it's a done deal, but they've already been to the site anyway, which to me is a big deal because the project's not even gone yet. We've had them on site. Are they scheduling a second site visit as we talk? So, we can't release that name right now, but we have had the first site visit and the second is scheduled. Okay, this talks about the regional event center development. You see the public-private partnerships. We talk about the public use that we talked about before. There's $24 million in investment that will go into the public facilities at about 150 event days per year. And you can see all the different uses. And what you'll see is the majority of these fit directly into the requirement that you've put forward for this type of facility and for the type of funding that we're asking for. Once again, we'll get into these as we get farther along. This is really interesting. We've talked about another criteria being economic development. When the study went through that Tim did, it came up with 419 jobs, a $50 million economic benefit, and construction jobs at 960 jobs. Pretty good numbers. We'll see that as we do events, as we get further into this, some letters put out by different groups, that each event we have here could raise on a weekend as much as $10 million economic impact to the community. That's $10 million just for one weekend. So, and we'll show you the letters for that here in a little bit. People say, what else does it bring? Well, the impact due to facility development tends to spur other development. It tends to spur other manufacturing development, other innovations. If we look at similar facilities, you'll see Sonoma has 70 businesses. There's one over in England, Silverstone. It has 300 partners and businesses that are associated with it. So there's definitely other facilities as well that can show quite a bit of impact. I think, Joel, you brought one up the other day, and it was Indianapolis, right? Just outside Indianapolis. And Brownsburg, which has a drag strip and a road course there. And it's really become a hub for all the companies doing racing, but it's brought quite a few businesses to that area. We've already talked about the potential OEM. We also see already, we've had some discussions with other amenity and hotel developers for that area, none of which we're ready to release, but you will see some other impact from that out from the facility to be able to support it. So, we talked.
Ask a question.
Yes.
Back to the previous slide. Please.
Sure.
So when you say you have an OEM engaged, can you just tell us what that means?
That's just a teaser in it. Yeah. So this OEM, and you're going to have to cut me off when I get too far on this because we don't want to jeopardize that OEM. This OEM is an international company. It is a company that produces equipment that would use all of the facilities on the site. It is a user that wants to be here because everything in this region applies to what it does, whether it's the off-road, whether it's the road course, or whether it's even marine. It applies to all those groups, and that's why they want to be here. And they want to
So are they committing to events? What does that mean in terms of dollars?
So you're way too far ahead of this right now. It's only been a site visit, but if I expand on it, just kind of answer your question.
What would you like to happen?
Okay, perfect. And it might be the next slide, so let me check and see if it's the next slide. So, okay, that's not, but I'm going to jump ahead. Now, what you see right here is the OEM center. Okay, so we've gotten to the point where we've already started looking at where it would go on the site. What that means is they'll put a facility on site. They will have additional facilities, each one of these areas, and have little out areas where they can demonstrate and test their products. This will not become a major test center for them. So let me get that. I don't want to give you any indication that that's what it is. But it will be a product demonstration area, and they'll bring many people to the area for this product demonstration area. Does that answer? If I answer, I can answer probably a little further on what the economic impact is for that.
So have they been on site?
Yes. And they're scheduling a second site visit right now. Yeah, good.
So the OEM is looking for a place to showcase their products all the way, like Andy said. Every one of their products could utilize the site, including the airport. And so it's the only site in North America that they can do that. And so that's the appeal for them. The other commitment that they're making is they want to preserve the sport. And the sport is all of their products to be showcased on a closed circuit facility like this.
I was walking on eggshells.
Would
He
this
said
be somebody like Ford Manufacturing?
it is a large brand, similar to international brands, such similar to that.
If I can jump in for just a moment. So the OEM is highly confidential as far as sensitive material, but let me just kind of help out a little bit to make some clarification to this. So circuits, they were instrumental in bringing this manufacturer to the Port of Bremerton. We gave them a confidential tour. But let me just say that, as Andy pointed out, it's an international company. This company builds two-wheel, four-wheel equipment. They also build airplanes and jets. When you leave tonight, you will see their insignia somewhere on the way home, probably 26 times, but not in the door. So they are a serious presence in the international industry. So from the port perspective, we would be very excited to have them on site because they're not just two-wheel, four-wheel, but they're also build planes and jets and so on and so forth. And so everything that company does internationally connects with everything that we have in our industrial center facility and connects as well economically with what Circuits is presenting to you. So, I mean, again, we can't go into too much detail on it, but I hope that helps a little bit.
And I would put out that we had the top executives here for that site visit. So.
One more quick question on that, though. So would they, I guess, sublease from you guys, and would they develop their own facility, or who would pay for that?
That's a good question. We haven't got that far, but we're identifying an area. Can that area be broken out into a sublease? Yes, it could be broken out into sublease. It's really how they want to handle their facility, right? We're not going to be able to dictate that. You know how that is with large companies. You kind of follow their path, and if you can't live with something, then you've got to object to it. But if you can live with it, you can live with it. So
they would have to lease that from somebody that you guys would afford.
That's right. Now, currently, it's under Brian's lease, so it could be a sublease.
Right.
Yeah. So, did I answer your question okay? Okay. Did I get enough for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So, I'm a little out of order, but that OEM is very important as we talk about what we also get from developing this public-private partnership facility that the public gets to use so much of. And quite frankly, the OEM likes that too, right? They like the public out there. They like the public seeing it. They don't want just to be a private club. They want this public involvement and public visibility. So, anyway, so let me move on.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are they a candidate for a partner in the STEM Center?
Absolutely. So now the STEM Center's got its own little elements. As you heard about, we're working with other groups for funding of that. But absolutely, they would participate with that STEM Center to bring their technology as well into looking at that. We'll talk a little bit about where that STEM Center is, and you'll see how it relates to what they're going to do on the OEM side. Because it all does tie together, right? When we're talking about technology, everybody wants to share. It's nothing more than a technology park where we're all working together to kind of to train, to build the workforce, and really get this moving in one direction. So
Yeah, obviously, if you could engineer or create a new Silverstone or along that model, would be wonderful.
I can't say that I have hopes of anything that grand, but I do believe that there is that interaction, that the elements we have here can build to a point where we have a mini Silverstone, right? I do believe that. To give you an idea, we talked about the economic impact of an event. So this is put out. This is a similar event done not too far from here. And one weekend event brought $7.28 million impact to the community where this was. We'll talk more about this as we move on further. So.
What type of event?
I'm sorry?
What type of event?
This is a motorsports event. So at this point, what we want to do is kind of talk a little bit about some of the additional public benefits that come out of this. Benefits that aren't funded by the KPFD, right? But are very important so you see how all this comes together as a technology center and what the community gets out of this. So at this point, I'd like to call upon Mark to kind of talk a little bit about the STEM Center and elements that we covered in the charrette and some of that.
Good evening. Good evening, board and community. I'm honored to be here to chat with you a little bit about this STEM Center because I'm looking at it from probably a different angle than a lot of folks involved in this project, and that's the angle of students and our future, our kids. Think about how important it is that we make education meaningful for our kids, and in our buildings we can only do so much. In public education we can do, we have our constraints, that sort of thing, and I'm hopeful when I think about kids approaching a center like this versus sitting in a classroom at a table doing homework on a desk locked in. I reminisce about when I was a kid. If I had the ability to be able to get on a bus and move down and go to a center like this, like a STEM center, and utilize my education, my skills, the things that they were teaching me, bust up my knuckles a little bit, do a little bit of math, right, and learn real consequences about how my miscalculation might affect something realistically instead of looking up the answers in the back of a book. I think kids would flock to something like this. I think they would love it. We've built some of these centers in our district here, but even though I'm here in Central, I think that something like this can benefit all of our kids in the entire county, from South Kitsap all the way up to Bainbridge. When kids can experience their learning, it becomes meaningful. And when we drill and kill them, is what we call it in education, where they're lectured to, they are talked about. We can guess what answers are. We look at the back of the book, and it's just meaningless. When I think about going to a space like this, it becomes real. STEM, by the way, for those of you, I know we've used lots of acronyms. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. But really, the heart of STEM is hands-on learning. It's meaningful learning. And I think if all of us think back to some of the most important education we've got, it probably had some element of active learning. I doubt a lot of us think about the times we were lectured to, the worksheets that we wrote, unless they were excruciating. And the nice thing about places like this with a STEM center, when I look at this, or when I saw this project and just dreamed of busing kids out there to apply the math fundamentals they learned, to apply the physics fundamentals, I think we'd have a hard time getting them to go home, to be honest with you. We have some of our new spaces that are hands-on learning spaces here in our district, and I just had a teacher contact me the other day holding after-school programs where they're working on machinery and tools and equipment, and he said he pretty much had to get them to leave. He had to shoo the kids home. And he said, Mark, these kids would have stayed there all night long working at this machinery. When you have a project, when you have something that you see and it's got meaning to it, you're going to learn something long term. Further, you get technical skills that's going to fill a gap that we have really got to start focusing on. And that is that there are some huge numbers out there that are attached to STEM and technology, and how often I hear when I'm out visiting with the trades, the technicians, no matter who it is, there's a huge need coming up for students to learn stuff like this. And what I really love about the idea of kids learning a little bit inside the classroom, busting their knuckles on some wrenches, maybe designing an AutoCAD a fender or something, and then making carbon fiber, some of the new stuff that Boeing's playing with. When I think about kids doing that, it's a surprise that they've been learning stuff. Surprise, you just performed some algebra. Surprise, you just did physics, aerodynamics, things like that. And I think about the younger me and the younger a bunch of us. We were in there learning, and hey, there's some big hitters outside. There's a racetrack outside of me. These guys don't want to highlight the racetrack part. Come on, that is really cool. Kids are gonna love that, right? That is really engaging, and so yeah, you bet. So I want to make a plug for our students and for our future and the kids being able to go somewhere that is outside of the classroom walls, non-traditional, and is going to give them the kind of education that is going to provide a path to a lucrative job in the future. And I see it steamrolling and becoming more and more of a need, and it's just, it's what I see here is a dream for our students and our kids and our future. So that's all I'm saying.
Thanks, Mark.
So, Mark, you're a Central Kitsap School District?
Correct, but honestly, I want to all kids. All kids is not just Central, all of them.
Is the career and technical education?
For all it's worth, all my counterparts at the other districts have seen this, and we're all very thrilled about it. We'd like to see it happen for our students. Sorry, any other questions? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Yeah, Mark's been real instrumental. He touched on the skills gap. And when I first started going down the STEM road, we experienced the skills gap every day at my job. You know, we have technicians. It's probably the most difficult position to fill. Am I right? It's very difficult to fill that position. So we experience a skills gap every day. You know, in our shop, we do mechanical engineering on a daily basis, whether it's fuel mapping, we do spring rates, we do plan on having a wind tunnel at the track to do some drag coefficients. So instead of doing quadratic polynomials at a desk, the students will get to apply their knowledge hands-on, and at least that's how I learn. You know, theory, and then there's application. And so this venue will give us a place to apply the theory that they learn in a textbook to real-world problems. Yes?
Is there an age cutoff for a student?
You know, that's up to the curriculum. That's up to the school districts. You know, what's been successful in other countries, in England, they do ages 14 to 19, and you would actually apply just like you would to a school to get accepted into a program. I don't think that'll work here in our school districts, but that question's out of my league, and I would have to have Mark answer that.
What we're showing here kind of just build on what Mark was talking about. These are examples of existing facilities. This down here is an existing facility, University of North Carolina, for STEM. It shows all the equipment in place. This is an existing products showroom and center for testing that we developed previously. The reason I show this is really kind of what you're going to see. And if you can imagine this attached to some of the garages, we'll get that dual use again of the facility on the infield area. And
Andy, on this one,
Yeah.
it's got a GE symbol on it.
yeah,
Can sponsor buildings or something?
it does happen, absolutely.
I mean, is that pretty much what happened here?
This is actually paid for by GE on this one. This is an electric car demonstration center had a road course attached to it. They ran all the dealers that were interested. They bring them in for weekends so they'd stay in the area and do all that, and they'd test drive and go through product tests on, and training on the vehicles. This time I'd like to talk a little bit more about the EVOC Center, the questions that were asked before about the EVOC Center. As part of the, and I'll ask Mr. Merrill to kind of start forward here. Sergeant Merrill, come forward.
That's Sergeant Merrill to you.
It is, and I'm not driving later, so I can tell you. So.
Mike works just fine.
But Mike was instrumental in the charrette as well. And what he really came up with and really showed us was how we can, once again, use these facilities as joint usage facilities, how we can get the benefits of, the public benefits of training into the facility that we have here. So, and with that, I'll leave it
So
to you.
I have a quick question. You've mentioned charrette, and I don't think anybody knows what that is.
Well, I'm getting bad at that tonight. I'm using a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
The charrette is a session that we bring all the stakeholders in and the users of the facilities, and we start saying, what do you need in a facility? What do you need in a facility? Is there joint usage? How do those come together? And how do we develop buildings and layouts that use all of that information from what each group needs to develop the overall plan? So it's not just one person designing, it's more of an integrated design process where everybody's involved through that process.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for giving me a second. And for those of you that know me, it wouldn't surprise you that I could probably sit here and talk for the next 90 minutes to you. I won't do that to you, but I'd like to give you a little bit of history lesson really quick. I've heard, what is EVOC, Emergency Vehicle Operations Course. Okay. I've been with the Sheriff's Office for the last 28 years, and I cannot remember a time that we did not use the current facility to do our training, and I want to give you a big thank you to the port, because I know we've been using that property for a long time, and it has really expanded in use for us. It's important for all of you to know that I'm not here today as a representative so much as the Sheriff's Office, but it's for the emergency services for practically the entire Olympic Peninsula. Okay. Emergency vehicle operations, what is it? Currently, we have a group called West Sound Regional EVOC. The reason West Sound Regional EVOC came about is when I started with the agency 28 years ago, we had one or two agencies in this area that would go out and use the facilities to do the training. We quickly found that our business just doesn't end at our jurisdiction, at our borders. That could be Fort Bremerton PD or the Sheriff's Office or whoever. We end up in Jefferson County, we end up in Clallam at times, down in Shelton. You never know where our life during the day is going to take us, and we end up interacting with other agencies. We quickly found out that other agencies didn't train near as much as we did, because we train twice a year. It's very, very important because it's one of the biggest liabilities that we have. We found agencies out there that hadn't done any emergency vehicle operations training for the last 10 years. That's a huge liability. What we did was we kind of opened up our group to those agencies and allowed them to come and start training with us. It was a big project to start, but it was a very important one, because you'll hear out there where you hear officers getting killed, using spike strips or in pursuits or that type of thing, and it's a lot of communications. It's a lot of knowing what each other's going to do and making sure we're all training the same. What we do out at EVOC now, you saw the list. We created West Sound Regional EVOC about 9 years ago. Currently, in our group that trained here just a couple weeks ago, we've got our agency, Bainbridge Island Police Department, Suquamish Police Department, Clallam County Sheriff's Office, Forks PD, Port Angeles PD, Sequim PD, Port Townsend PD, Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, Grays Harbor Sheriff's Office, Aberdeen PD, Shelton PD, Gig Harbor PD, Ruston PD, and Furcrest PD. Those were the agencies that trained here at the beginning of April. What does EVOC for us entail? We bring the students out during their normal work hours. So if they're working during the daytime and happens to be raining that day, that's the environment that they train in. If they work at night, in the middle of the night at midnight, we bring them out at midnight. If it's snowing out, raining out, it's pitch black, we have them train in that environment. We bring them out, we usually give them about a half an hour classroom type of briefing where we go over different topics of concern for that. We basically talk to each of the agencies to see where they're having issues, give information on that. One of the things that we do train on is below 100. If any of you have heard of that program, it hasn't been since 1943 where law enforcement deaths have been below 100, okay? That's been a long time. The program basically has 5 tenets: slow down, wear your seatbelt, wear your vest, what's important now, and complacency kills, okay? We go through and we kind of touch on those subjects, go through some course instructions, and then we put the officers out into mock pursuits, okay, where we actually chase bad guy cars. Now it's really important, as you can all imagine, that we have a closed facility that we can control, because there's no way we can go through downtown Bremerton, in the middle of the day doing this type of training. So we go through that. We typically set up an autocross course out there. One of our biggest problems we have in emergency vehicle operations, if you can believe it or not, is slow speed collisions. We have much more of a tendency to back into carport posts, rock walls that we can't see in the middle of the evening than anything that we deal with in high-speed vehicle operations. So it's imperative that we have not only the placement type of things, but the high speed. We also use skid cards out there. You'll see in the course design that there's actually a skid pan set up where it would give us a lot more area to play with, and we wouldn't actually need the skid car itself, but it would be a couple different tools that we could use. One of the things that we're not able to do at the current facility that there would be a huge demand for is motors training. We cannot operate our police motorcycles at the current facility as there are chemicals on the raceway out there that make it too dangerous for us to do that. All the agencies, including agencies that we train with on the other side of the water, would be more than excited to have a facility to train in. So that would be a huge boon for us on that. Other agencies that we've worked with, we've actually helped Seattle PD's traffic unit in training out at the facility, and the Criminal Justice Training Commission, which is the state agency that trains all the law enforcement officers in the state of Washington. They have been looking for, and this has been something over the years, they've been looking for another facility to use as well, because right now they rely on State Patrol's facility in Shelton, and that facility is tough to get time at. So this is something where I have been approached by the Criminal Justice Training Commission, if a facility were to open on our area, what the availability would be for that. So it really is it is a regional facility already, and it's something that our liability in our vehicle operations is so huge that it's imperative that we have this facility for us to continue our training. Not too long ago, I presented a letter to you from the sheriff. I've been keeping him apprised on this, and he's been staying up to date on what has been going on. He is very excited about all the aspects of the program, and anything that he can do to assist in seeing this come to fruition, he is more than happy to do.
So I have a question.
Questions? Yes.
Would you be using the racetrack for training?
We would be using quite a bit of the facility because
Specifically the racetrack.
Yes, and the way it can be designed is to have high-speed crossover areas. To get into the skid pan, you actually need an area that you can run up to speed. to access that skid pan, and that would most likely come off the track itself. There is a lot of training that we do that is high speed as well as the slow speed type of training. And there is, I'm not too sure on this current one, this is the first time I've seen the updated design. Brian may be able to, or somebody might be able to help me out with the current setup on where the skid pad is and the access to it.
Skid pad is right here. We do have, the track breaks up into 2 facilities, so it always has access to the skid pad where you can bring one road course through the skid pad. So you could have this lead up area, or we can bring this in at a higher speed into the skid pad as well. So just depending on the speed that he wants to carry. There's also some things that you may want to do from a highway training standpoint on the median crossovers, things like that. We haven't talked too much about that, but that's another area that we can work into the facility as well. But we would bring a higher speed entry into this skid pad, which is right there. So we also have, to expand a little bit, we have a building here for the training center, which you'd use for the actual classroom training, and then go out from there. We talked about some vehicle maintenance areas. We'll be able to do some of that back in here, maintenance areas, and that's something we'll talk about at the facility overall as well, is all the maintenance for this. And then there's a gun range right here for training as well. So.
And some of the other things that we've used the current facility for, which we would continue as well here, are canines. Whenever we do training, we're always looking for a closed area where we can train on different surfaces, be it grass or on pavement itself, where we can keep the new dogs and handlers away from people so we don't get that interaction to begin with, except for the people that we want them finding. The other thing that we do as well is we do our collision investigation classes out there as well. We teach a basic collision and advanced collision. So we've got a closed area where we can actually bring the officers out to look at mock collision scenes and how to investigate them, how to determine speeds from tire friction marks, from yaw marks, do momentum analysis on cars that are in collisions, and there's a lot of different uses that we actually end up having for this, as well as the Department of Emergency Management. Brian may know how many have happened in the last couple of years, but there's been, I remember being involved in 2 huge county-wide trainings out at that facility as well that DEM hosted. So there's always, yes.
Didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to, I'm a retired police officer, and I mentioned 2 very simple facts. Number 1, the most important thing a police officer does every day, the most dangerous thing he can do is shoot and drive. In fact, the most dangerous thing that every one of you does every day, unless you have a really weird job, is driving. But the average officer has served his entire career, never fires a round at anybody, on the range, but not another person. But he drives every single day. Secondly, the national statistics over the last, I don't know how many years, almost half of all the officers, and you always hear about officers getting shot and killed, but almost like 45 to 50% of all officers killed every year in the United States are driving accidents, driving problems.
And to expand on that, the Below 100 program that I mentioned, and I could go on for that for quite some time, but what we found is, and he is correct, there are years when more than half of the officers that die throughout the country are from motor vehicle collisions, okay? And the majority of those are officers where they're involved in single vehicle collisions, where they're driving too fast, they're not wearing their seatbelt, they're not wearing their vest, and if we can just, I mean, it's important to me. I've been a collision reconstructionist since 1998 and am in charge of the traffic division. We've been very, very fortunate here in Kitsap County and on the peninsula that we haven't had really any major collisions involving law enforcement, but that's not the case everywhere. And that's one of the things why we do the training, because I don't want to go out and have to investigate a collision where we've caused it, we're involved, it's another officer. I don't even want to go out and investigate the ones that I do where civilians are involved. But he is right. I mean, the main thing that we do every day is drive. That's the only way that we can get to and from our details. And I've been very fortunate in the last 28 years. I've never had to shoot at somebody, which is a good thing, and I'm hoping to make it through my next 2 or 3 years where I don't. You know, that's not something that I really want to do. So this is huge. It really is.
So if you have to, you want to hit what you're shooting.
Oh, definitely. And I will, guaranteed. So
do you guys pay a fee, the agencies, to use the track now, or are you going to be paying a fee in the future?
we pay a fee currently, a per day fee, to use the facility. Right now, the way we do our training is that we used to, in years past, and I'm talking many years ago, we used to pretty much have whatever access we would need to the facility. There's a lot more users today than what there was in the past. So now typically what we do is we train 1 week, and it's usually the first week of April after spring break. So maybe closer to the second week of April. And then we train the end of October into the first week of November. And that's where we bring everybody in, and we end up paying a per day fee for those.
So you have an ILA with the port now, but you enter into a contract with Circular Northwest?
Correct. Yep. And then we pay them directly for the use of the facility. Any other questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Anything I didn't touch on?
I think you hit it all. I can't think of anything else that.
Any questions from anybody? No. Well, again, thank you for your time, and if you do, I'll be sticking around.
Just to note, the public rate is about a third less than the normal rate for first responders.
Joel, did you want to talk about this or me?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. So the question is, another question that comes up is, can this happen? Will there be private financing involved and that we can acquire to get this project done, right? So we're asking for public funds to cover public facilities. Can we get the private facility money in as well? We've already started the whole process. So the process began with engaging and working with Columbia to start looking at the membership rates. So that's already begun. Another element we've already started working with is, and you'll hear about in a little bit, is the private investors. And we've got some private investors here that we'll introduce you to that have interest in the facility. So we wanted you to understand that we believe we have the money, or we'll get the money to get this facility done. So we know that's important to you as well. If you're going to make a commitment, we have to make sure we have our side covered as well. So here's some example of some of the existing letters of support that exist. You see Bainbridge Fire Department, you'll see some of the Kitsap school districts, Bremerton, South Kitsap, Port Orchard. All these letters should be in your packets, so you can read through those. Sarge talked about the Kitsap Sheriff's Department as well. That should be in your packet as well. You can read that and see how they are interested in this facility and everything that they believe it can do at this facility. And one that I want Joel to talk about is really the Seattle Sports Commission and what they've said. I made the statement before that you can get $10 million for a weekend event. That wasn't me making that up. That wasn't my numbers. That was Seattle Sports Commission. And Joel, if you can just kind of go through that.
Yeah, I have been in constant dialogue with Ralph Morton, Executive Director of Visit Seattle Sports Commission. What that concludes change. This is another event. Let me hand it out real quick. It was given to us just off the presses from Ralph. He and his entire staff are out of the country, actually. As you know, they're one of the hottest sports commissions, as you know. But I was lucky enough in the young part of my career to work with Don Schumacher, who basically taught me how important sports commissions are. And he basically was the, I'd say, father of the majority of the 50 state sports commissions. And to get an endorsement and the Seattle Sports Commission, Visit Seattle, is critical. The other letters of public support are just as critical, but since Ralph has appeared at the KPFD meetings in support, I thought I would read this really quickly, but it is critical to have their support. This is addressed to Brian dated April 15. Seattle Sports Commission is a strong supporter of your efforts to bring motorsports to the Pacific Northwest. Our organization led an influential group of more than 100 commissioners who believes in the power of sports and the impact it can have in the region. We're bringing the world to Seattle and uniting the region with sports. By encouraging vibrant sports culture, the SSC seeks to strengthen and promote a general engagement in athletics and bolster pride in our community. Motorsports in Kitsap County is a regional economic driver for tourism, business development, and serve as a hub, as an enthusiast of the hub. As a destination, it'll open the door to the entire Olympic Peninsula, along with businesses that will be looking to relocate to this region. Races at the facility and drivers at the track will fill hotel rooms, restaurants, expose people to immense opportunities that Kitsap has to offer. As Andy said, and as Tim has said, and is validated by SSC, one weekend alone can create $10 million of economic impact. It's just the tip of the iceberg. I'll pause right here and say that in Tim's study that was completed in September of 2018 in Brian's private documents, we're conservative. There are no public events that are included in the ability for this private portion of the master plan shows the 11 million. This will support it because we didn't include any public events. We have had discussions with a major sanctioning body, and they would be interested. And we have two examples, one that I just received and one that's in your packet, that shows that if we were to do 3 to 5 events, what kind of economic impact it would make on this region. Along with Ralph's line here, what is good for Kitsap is ultimately good to benefit the entire region. An attendee at the Circuit of the Northwest will spend money and will make their trip and make it an extended stay in your region. It opens the door for business development and more opportunity for the region to get involved in the automotive industry, as discussed earlier. This can include anything from product development to innovative work or on electric cars. In addition to featuring one of the destination tracks in the world with a scenery that is unmatched, this is an opportunity to become a regional leader in the motorsports industry. Patrons and investors come from fluid backgrounds and will become a fabric of the region, providing another region for people to live, work, vacation in your neighborhood, the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Signed, Ralph Morton, Executive Director. So, as I stated earlier, you have two examples of hosting an event. We had talked about, I think, Labor Day, Mr. Walton, making a trip that we couldn't get done. It was too short a notice, but Portland is a very good comparable. Right. And I'm not able to speak directly about it, but it's public information. We had 40,000 people in 3 days. An economic written by a journalist. They don't release numbers because it's a private promoter, but I mean, the crowd estimate was 10,000 people on Friday, I believe, and 20,000 on the day of the event. So we will have one of the finest facilities in North America, and we will attract international events such as Portland and Labor Day weekend of 2018. Certainly with the NBC network signing a 10-year agreement, this will be a very important part of that sanctioning body. So thank you for listening. I wouldn't reiterate this letter if I didn't believe how important it is to have a sports commission behind your project. Thank you very much. Yes?
The NBC part, can you fill us in on that again?
Sure. NBC Sports Network just signed an extension with the sanctioning body.
Which body?
I would say IndyCar, public knowledge. IndyCar, public knowledge. 10-year extension. I believe that I can't go any further just answer your direct question.
Television rights.
Television rights to
Yeah.
IndyCar was renewed for 10 years. That's great exposure for the sanctioning body. It would be great exposure to have a race of that stature to your region. Can you imagine the city of Bremerton, Port Orchard, Kitsap County on NBC Sports Network, Seattle Grand Prix? You know where I'm going?
I remember the Tacoma Grand Prix.
Correct. There's a long-standing history of motorsports. Actually, you pointed out we found a photo from 1957. Thank you, Aaron. Any other questions about the example event or the Seattle Sports Commission support? Thank you. Andy?
To build on what we talked about getting things going and making sure we can meet the private investment into the project as well. I think you might have met Everhart, Mary, when she was here before.
Very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly. But she's already completed the documents, and this is the most important. I can go through her resume, but that's not as important. The important part is the documents she's already prepared. So all the membership documents are ready to start selling the memberships. We're ready and ready to start moving forward with that. So as we get into this further, I think, did you want to introduce some of the people before we go into that, or did you?
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, you want to go in that order?
Yeah, let's go. We're going to introduce some of the private people here to talk about investment into the facility.
Yeah, now the fun part of the meeting. Does everybody want to have some fun? All right. So we talked about 70% of this project is going to be private, right? And I wanted to explain to the board what our plans were. We'll get into the membership here in a minute, but it's going to be a combination of OEM sponsorship. It's going to be the membership, and it's also going to be there's also going to be a private equity component. And there's a couple people here that are interested in that proposal. One of them is a local hero that came up here from California to be with us this evening. He's won 74 national events and 10 championships. I guess he didn't want to win 100 because he retired early. But I'd like to welcome Ryan Villapoto. Ryan, why don't you come up here? And thanks for coming. Ryan,
I have to come up and shake his hand because I've been watching what you've been doing.
Oh, yeah?
I truly admire what you've been able to do in your sport.
Well, thank you.
Monumental.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So Ryan and his business partner Brent, who's sitting over here, we put on this series called Pac West MX. And this is just one example of what we're going to do with the Circuit of the Northwest. Is we're going to have the best motocross facility, I don't know, can I say around. And we're going to make that exclusive for our Pac West series, which is multi-state. It's 8 rounds, and we're going to grow it. So with Ryan's help and Brent's help, that's just one facet of this multi-use facility. So thanks for being here, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I think it's, I grew up here. I left when I was 15 and went to Southern California, had to escape the rain to go ride. My dad and mom, we went south and started racing, and they brought me down to pursue, I guess, my career, and luckily enough was able to retire it at 27. But now I'm supporting things like this with Brian and Pac West, like he said. So, I'm a huge supporter of this. I think the Northwest in general, I wouldn't say Kitsap County, but the Northwest, all of us up here, we need, a motorsports venue like this. I'm a racer. My family's a racer. My grandpa still rides. My dad rode, and so I still ride, obviously. So, and I have 2 twins. My kids are 2.5. So, we're a motorsports family, and to be able to bring them to a place like this, 15 minutes from my mom's house would be huge. So, I'm going to support it, and hopefully for sure it happens. I'd love to be right up on the top of the list to be an investor in it and hold if it's a condo or a garage, whatever it is, this thing when it pops off is going to be something that's is going to be very, very cool. So I hope you guys support it, and like I said, I'm a huge supporter of it. So
yeah, thanks for
pushing, Brian.
Next, I'd like to introduce Bruce Carlson. Where's Bruce? Everyone has to wish Bruce a happy birthday. What more? Where would you rather be on your birthday, Bruce?
This is it. I don't know that I want to follow him.
How many championships have you won, Bruce?
Sorry to say.
Too many to count. Yeah, thanks for coming here tonight. Appreciate it.
Good races, but not championships per se. So I've got sort of a varied background in terms of, and thank you to the board for hosting this in the first place. But my background is somewhat varied. It comes at this project from different angles. I've been involved in high performance driving and education. I've been an instructor with the BMW clubs, a couple of chapters for 23 years now, and which has involved everything from the different levels of high performance driving, but also maybe more importantly, the adult car control clinics and the teen driving schools. And this is now a family affair in that my son, who also is an instructor, also does, not at this particular venue, does EVOC training and training of highway patrolmen and policemen in high-speed car control as well. We both race and have gone to 20-25 tracks around the country in that capacity. We also are interested in developing the garage condos that you've seen as a part of the project. And we currently own one in a different venue. I'm from Minnesota originally. Now I'm a resident out here and have been for about 6 years and love it out here and want to see that carried through to this area. So we're interested in developing with private money the garage condos that can be utilized by the other users as well. My business is I have a registered investment advisory firm, and I'm personally interested in investing in Brian's operation from an equity standpoint, as well as the membership, as well as the developmental piece with the garage condos. So it's a project that we believe in, and I especially think that the public aspect of this, for example, up until your kids are all about 34, 35 years old, the single biggest cause of death for them is going to be a car accident. And one of the articles I read today was suggesting that teens are less interested in getting your license and getting a car. Part of what that means is when they do, they're going to have less experience. And the thing that isn't taught, they get rules of the road to get a driver's license, but they don't get car control. And even knowing what the capabilities of what they're operating is. So I think that's crucially important. It's been a part of what my son and I have done in terms of making sure that we avail ourselves as much as we can of participating in the car control clinics and the teen driving schools, as well as the high performance driving schools, as well as a part of our repertoire. Is there anything else I'm missing here?
No, that's great. Question.
Sure.
Question. What do you mean by a garage condo?
Okay, part of what we've done and enjoyed about going to these various racetracks and everything is to see their layouts, how they work, and everything else. But and have toured other areas that just do garage condos. And what I mean by that is you have a garage, might be part of a pole barn, or typically they're nicer than that, where they're individually owned. And then people fix them up. You know, some of them will create lofts or man caves or whatever else, or those types of things, but
in this setting, it would be where someone who was a member of the club might want a facility inside where they can just keep their cars. They can work on them or whatever else and then use them on the track or the various other events.
So not actually where they live, just where their car lives.
Right. There might be some entertainment facility that they, build into it or whatever, but that's the gist of it. And especially to begin with, there's going to be needed a bunch of other infrastructure to facilitate what the OEMs or the car clubs, when they come in to rent the facility to conduct their high-performance driving schools, those types of things will be needed. And I did want to make one point, because I think I don't know, sitting in the audience, that you got the proper picture when they talk about an OEM participation. We just went to a track about 3 weeks ago that was down in Alabama. It's called Barber Motorsports. And Porsche there runs their high-performance driving school out of that singular facility. So when you drive in, there's 40 or 50 Porsches sitting there. So whether anybody comes in with anything else, it's meant to be a facility that they can bring people in and show off their cars and have them be familiar with it, product introductions. It might be, and all of the large manufacturers are doing this as a facility where it's cheaper for them to bring influence people in than it is to bring the cars or whatever to them wherever they happen to be. So it's not surprising that there's a great deal of interest in this kind of facility on the part of OEMs, and their presence here will be more than they just show up and do some testing. They might put a permanent facility to the point where it's and be bringing people into the area and through for product introductions, familiarity, high performance driving schools and things like that that are consistent with their brand.
Correct.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks. We're talking about multi-use. That's one of the criteria that we need to adhere to. And is Joey Sim here still? Joey from Bremerton Sports Car Club. I'd like you to come up and explain how your group uses the current facility and how you can utilize the new one.
Thanks for the heads up about coming up here.
Thanks for coming up here.
Thank you, board, for having this meeting here. I see at least a few familiar faces. I'm in a little interesting mix with the facility. I graduated from Washington State University Mechanical Engineering program based out of Olympic College in Bremerton. I work for the Naval Underwater Warfare Center out in Keyport, and I have been a part of the Bremerton Sports Car Club since I was 18 years old. So I've been a board member with the Bremerton Sports Car Club for coming up on a decade now. So as far as people that use the facility, I'm out there probably more than almost anyone else. I drive with the Bremerton Sports Car Club, the Sports Car Club of America, as well as the Porsche Club of America. As far as people coming out, one of the typical events for Bremerton Sports Car Club, we have between 125 and 175 entrants. So, that's a couple times. We'll see probably 10 events a year. We'll do driving schools. I instruct with both the Sports Car Club of America and the Bremerton Sports Car Club. I'm also involved with the teens survival schools as well. So, this is a facility that has really shaped my life and my interactions and where I went to school and where I work. And this is really important for me to see this facility succeed and continue offering motorsports in the area.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. So if there's a full Santa can, Joe calls me, right, Joe? Yeah. Tate Matherly, come on up. Join the fun. Tate puts on off-road motorcycle events in a group called Team Tortoise, and I think you're the biggest around, aren't you?
Yeah, one of the biggest. I'm small potatoes compared to some of you. Thank you, board, for listening to us. So, the biggest thing I can say about off-road racing, I know we heard a lot about motocross, which is an amazing sport. It's at a different level altogether. Off-road racing is a family, true family level of dirt bike racing. So we currently use a portion of the port through Brian's lease right now. We set up a course that's approximately 6 miles in length on existing trails and the moto track and some of the sort of obscure areas out there. So I have kids racing from 8 years old of age and under. I've got about 35 kids on average to our events. But the more unique thing is we have their moms racing. We have a class for women 30 and over. So we have 16 of those at our first race just a couple weeks ago. We had 16 ladies that we call them 29 and under. So what I'm getting at is it's a family event. Every aspect of the family is participating, from the little guys to the moms, and then of course the dads go out there and participate as well. We are the largest off-road series this side of the Mississippi, with the exception of one in Southern California. We average over 400 participants an event. And it varies a little different from some of the other racings where you can do multiple classes. When we have 400 participants, we have 400 people racing, not riding multiple classes. That's 400 people racing. So we get about 800 to 1,000 people through a gate at a lot of our events. So we weather the tours a lot of people, so that's a factor. We have schools given by one of the top off-road riders in the region to the kids on Saturdays. So we have an education part of it too, training skills, helping them out, building their confidence. The biggest thing is family. I can show you, I wish I would have gotten this image to Brian, but I want to show you an image of an event, an off-road event that was taken 3 weeks ago. I hope it's still there. This is the off-road riding community. This is over in Odessa. There's 8,000 motorhomes there, all families of all ages of kids, moms, dads. So it's been, I've worked in the motorcycle power sports industry for many years. I was a rep for Tucker Rocky Distributing. I had an opportunity to meet with Malcolm Smith. And Malcolm Smith says, anybody who's ever ridden a dirt bike is an off-road rider, right? We have motocross, which is a specified, intense racing. Out of 150 people, 149 of them are off-road riders. One's a true, and they do both, but they all ride off-road. So the off-road community is ginormous. We need a facility. We need a controlled environment with education so these people can go ride. Right now, our public facilities, the Tahuya State Forest, bursting at the seams with the amount of enthusiasts. I mean, almost to a point where it's a hazard. I haven't been in 15 years because it's so crowded. You have the ORV park that Ryan and Brent run down in Grace Harbor has a neighboring trail system, Capitol Forest trail system. Same thing, bursting at the seams. These people don't have enough places to go to participate. And with the location of this facility, the centralization of it, it's going to be huge. And the economic impact is there, as evidence from that photo I just showed you. If you can have an event there, they're going to come. They'll be there.
Yeah, thanks, Tate.
So,
yeah, Tate's events are among the most fun that we do at the facility because of the family aspect. So there's kids, they all travel in an RV, and some kids play baseball, some play soccer, but there's a heck of a lot that ride off-road motorcycle, and Tate is an awesome ambassador for your sport. So yeah, good job. I also have here a guest from an OEM, $6 billion OEM, I think, right? And Eric Bood, so welcome, Eric. So Eric and I were talking about how an OEM could utilize a facility such as this, so thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Taking the trip.
So thanks for having me. We've had a lot of talk about OEM, so I guess I'm from one of those magical places. So we do about $6 billion in revenue. I work for Polaris. Polaris manufactures 2, 3, and 4-wheel vehicles. Many of you are nodding your head, so you seem to know what I'm talking about. Everything from side-by-side ATVs that Tate was talking about, riding with your family, to Indian motorcycle, to our Polaris ATVs, and our 3-wheeled vehicle, which is the Slingshot. So large company, a little over 11,000 employees, and about 1,300 plus dealerships in North America. So fairly substantial presence. So for a facility like this, there's quite a few uses that have been touched on by a variety of people today. Everything from your local family in the motorhome, to the local racer, to the local rider, to the local family that doesn't own many acres to ride their vehicles on, so they're literally just looking for somewhere fun to ride that's safe, as well as in a controlled area, right? So they know where their kids are, they know where the family is, they can control the situation. Additionally, beyond just customers, there's a huge opportunity for an OEM to use it for everything from testing. So whether it's like new products, stuff that has yet to be released, it could be testing vehicles that we're refining or trying to improve. We also have the opportunity to bring in people. For example, in the past, we've had product testing out in the Northwest. We have a variety of writers and media essentially come out to test the product in a controlled environment where we have the opportunity to utilize both a classroom as well as a racetrack that has both the on and off-road component would be key. There's not a lot of places that would allow us to do so. So we'd be able to utilize it for all of those reasons. Additionally, want to make sure I don't forget anything here. The customer experience center is key. Most of our products, customers need to go somewhere to experience it. Not everyone has the land or the ability to do it on their own, so this gives them that opportunity.
Thanks, Eric.
Excellent.
Appreciate it. Another few people here. Is Nick Sablehouse here?
No way.
Did he run away?
Yeah.
How about Zach Holmes? Did he run away too? How about Mike Redley?
Oh, Zach's right there.
Yeah.
Zach's over there, Brian.
Oh, there he is. Okay, just a second. Mike, come on up. Thanks for coming tonight.
You bet.
Yeah, Mike's a really valuable customer for Brothers Power Sports, and he loves motorcycles, I think.
And cars.
And cars.
Thanks
for coming tonight.
You bet.
Appreciate
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, for bringing this to our community, and thank you to the board for listening. But yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, this is a kind of a, I've been in this community my whole life, 60 years, and we've never had anything like this. And really I think everybody said it all, but what I wanted to say was, we don't get these opportunities very often. This is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all of the Pacific Northwest, not just Kitsap County. Opportunity for revenue, opportunity for our families, you know, to ride, drive, whatever. But I just hope that we'll not let this one go.
Yeah.
And wanted to say thank you to everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
Zach, do you want to say a few words?
Sure.
Come on up.
Sure. Hey everybody, I'm just a local business owner that is interested in the private side of it and supporting it, and looking forward to seeing what happens and seeing what I can do to help out.
Yeah, right on.
That's the gist of it.
I think I'll turn it back over to Andy.
So we finally get to sum it up and then open up for questions if you have any questions. So what we want to do is now we get, of course, to the main key point of the reason we're here tonight, right? Really explain what we're asking for. And you want me to go through these real quick and then you can kind of sum it up? Okay. So we understand the criteria that KPFD has. We think we meet all that criteria. We think, in fact, we think we meet it better than any other project. not to remove any other projects, but to say that we meet it from our standpoint. We meet the criteria that you have. We talked about it before, we're not asking for you to fund the private facilities. We're asking you to fund a portion. Remember, it was 24 million? Look down at the bottom line, you'll see what the ask is. You probably already jumped to there. But we're only asking for a portion of that. We're not asking for full public support of the public facilities. And remember, we are maintaining those facilities. We are staffing those facilities. All the public facilities, the private facility pays for. So if there's any questions on that as we get to it in the future. So we talked about the project meets all the criteria for regional sports event center, regional special event center. Project cost of facility is $24 million, provides substantial benefit. Provides great economic development, as we heard through the different studies. The public facilities funded by the facility. There's some additional ones that will be provided for public benefit that are not even provided by the KPFD funding. We talked about to be maintained by our staff or by the staff of the facility, private facilities, and it's a great technology generator and partner for the community. One more thing is we did talk about the users. We currently have 41 users, and they're in full support, and we can actually produce 1,500 residents who are in support of this facility as well. So with that, we would like to ask respectfully on behalf of our sponsor for a $10 million investment from the KPFD in the facility to support those public facilities at C&W. And that does, we talk about the $10 million investment, there's already been investment, right? So we're not asking for that in addition to. We're asking that what's been invested already is subtracted from that. So total amount would be a $10 million investment. That's what we're asking for. So with that, yeah, on behalf of the board, so our sponsor.
Yeah, so our ask is a $10 million investment on behalf of the Port of Bremerton. That's our public partner. I want to thank you guys for allowing us to come back and present again. And we talked about the criteria, one being economic development, tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and almost 1,000 jobs being created. Efficient use of public and private monies with a 70-30 split, private 70-30 public. Innovation with C&W, STEM Lab, Technology Lab, and then number 4, multiple use of the facilities. I think tonight you kind of got an idea of what multiple use means to us and how we can utilize our event area and EVOC area for concerts and sanctioned events and training, and the list really goes on. And I would add that it would be flexible over time. So in 10 years from now, if a certain discipline isn't popular, we can unplug that and do something different in our given space. We're excited to move forward to move from our 119-acre regional center that serves 41 community clients and expand on it in the new site in accordance with RCW 3557020. It is important to note that C&W's membership areas will not receive PFD funding, as Andy did a great job earlier saying, and that public funding will only go into the public facilities. That's it. With the PFD's initial investment, the region will reap the economic benefit for years to come. In addition to the $51 million in revenues in just the first 2 years, in retaining the economic impact with our 41 users perpetually. C&W's operations over time will not burden the taxpayer. So one of the evaluation items was maintenance. We'll maintain the facility. We're not going to come back and ask you to repair a crack in the asphalt, for example. That's all done on the private side. So this would be seed money for the public use, and then perpetually we would maintain the facility as a whole. Public involvement in C&W doesn't happen without your help, and I ask respectfully for your support. It's important to note today that I ask KPFD for an investment in a public-private partnership that focuses on the benefit of the public and the community. As I stated earlier, 70% private. We already have a founders group established. The current operation, we already have over 100 names for our founders group. And now that we have our documents, that I think, did you pass those around, Joel?
Yeah.
We have our membership documents that just got finalized last week. Now we'll be soliciting founders and we'll be able to accept deposits. Are you taking checks tonight, Joel?
Yes.
Okay.
We're legal now.
Now we're legal. I want to thank you for your consideration for CNW to make the most dynamic road course in North America. Thank you.
At this point, questions? We do have time for questions. We had a lot of people come up here. Any questions that you might have?
Are you gonna?
Yeah, sure.
you
What
gonna-
we'll do is ask the board first, and then we'll come to the audience if that's okay.
So you're looking for 10 million from the PFD and about 5 million in private equity funding, and the remaining 20 million in private memberships. And I'm sure my answer to my question is in here somewhere.
Yeah, you got to go through that. But yeah,
I saw that you're looking for 300 founding memberships. What does a founding membership cost?
Give you, Walt, thank you for the question. I can give a quick example. I don't want to get too elaborate. This is proprietary information we were doing. It's unique to the Pacific Northwest. So in a founders group, an example of a one applicant example would be is that the market study indicated a $62,500 number that the market would bear, supply and demand. The founder has an opportunity to be a part of a brand new facility, as Brian pointed out. As I have said from day one, this will be the most unique public-private partnership venue, multi-facility in North America. They want to be a part of it. We've got over 100 names, but we have probably 400 or 500 more. And I'll take you through one example, is that we're asking for escrow dollars, fully refundable. It's a $10,000 commitment. Somebody writes a check, goes to our Apollo, goes into escrow. When we hit 100, then we have a cash call for $50,000. So at the end of 100, you will have $6 million in the bank addressing some of the private equity. And then we would kick off 101 to 200. Same examples. In this industry, we find that being number 1, number 6, number 30, they want to be a part of it. It's, we've seen in the industry. They want to get their amenities first. So if you're number 1, go through the applicant process, which is in the notebook, and you're accepted, and you write a check, you will have first choice at your garage, your condo, and it's special. So that's one example of how we get to 20 million. That is, it's a founders group, it's a specialized group that want to be a part of it. The beginning of something, a brand new facility, we find that they take garages and they want amenities. So it puts them to the front of the line. How we get to 300 members is that's what the market demand studies show would support. By reviewing the data, we feel that we will have no problem, as I mentioned in the July, August, September meeting, with the interest level. Now that we're ready to go legally, hospitality company, management team ready for the club membership, we're ready to go. Brian Nelson, as he sits over there today, is not the same Brian Nelson that presented this to the board a year ago. This thing is teed up and ready to go on the private sector. So does that help illustrate how we get to 300 and how we get to 18 million? It's a $10,000 refundable, a $50,000 cash call when we achieve a block of 100, and that would go into escrow, and then we would raise the rest of the capital. if you can get to 50-50 cost versus in the bank, that's pretty good, guys. And that's going to be easily attainable by the data that we've obtained. Any questions?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so do you plan to have all your funding in place before you start construction?
Yeah, we'll have to. Yeah, and what we could do is start out with a smaller piece. There's talk about a grading and drainage project, and that's really more based on time of year, right? I've been educated from the people out here. MAP LTD did a great job educating me on when I could start projects out here, when we can't start projects out here. And based on that time frame, we may do a small grading and drainage project first. That would take some initial funding, equity and debt, to get that started. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
And then the rest of it would require more funding.
And one other one, so how do they decide the days between public and private usage of the track?
It's a good question. So members do have a requirement for so many access days a year. But let me go back to, if you don't mind, let me go back to this picture again. Remember, we can break up into two tracks. So you have a track here and you have a track here. So the club is set up so they have their own entry, their own pit area, so that they can access this piece even if this one is being used for public facilities use. Okay? So for the public use, this could still be going on while the club has access over there. That's how you get the dual use of the facility.
So would you highlight the areas that we would be involved in funding?
Yeah. So I showed that before, that image, that the light green. Oops. I get trigger happy here, so maybe I shouldn't go to the gun range. The dark green right here, those are the private facilities. It's the OEM center, the membership, and the private garages. The rest of everything else in the light green, that's all public use facilities. So KPFD funding is really going to fund all those public access facilities. Those public access happens a number of ways. It happens through events, so they can be spectators at events. They can use it for community events. They can use different track pieces, such as motocross. One thing we didn't talk about, because the guy who developed this left off the label here, and I apologize for that. This is a karting track that will have access to public. This is motocross, access to public. Skid pad can have access to public. There's STEM center. All these areas, this is an event center, such as a conference space, ballroom type facility, and then this big open event center space out here. So basically all of the light green is what is public use facilities.
So when the board sends that bill for reimbursement, are we going to see any bill that comes from the racetrack itself?
You will get this, because of the public use of this, you will get no bill from any of the dark green, period. Okay. There's no public investment in any of the dark green facilities.
Okay, what about the track?
The track does. The track is a joint use facility, so that does have public involvement because it will have the big events. We talked about a big user event on a weekend that created $10 million of return to the community. So that track has to be in place in total to have one of those large events.
Right. Just so that so I'm clear, the existing facility over on the east side of the runway,
yes,
commonly referred to as the inactive track,
right?
Inactive runway. Everything that is currently going on that site is going to be transferred over to this site.
That's right.
What?
41 users.
What?
41 users, that's right. It'll all come over. Yeah, so if I go back to it, every single bit of that, and I'm just going to flip a little bit if you don't mind, but yeah, that slide we showed at the very beginning, right there.
Could be more than that.
What's that?
Could be more than that.
Right.
Oh, yeah. But this entire facility here comes over to the new facility. Every use, all the public access to that, all comes over to this facility. So,
But no drag strip?
Is one of the commissioners
None.
still here?
None.
Pardon me, is one of the commissioners still here? Okay. What's gonna happen to that area that causes them to be moved?
sure. Talk about it.
So to answer your question, this is the highway between Gorse and Belfair along here. This is an existing roundabout that was built about 7 years ago. This portion of road, as you follow down the pointer, is now extended and will intersect the current facility right here as it accesses this industrial property. And right now we have a design in, we call it Airport Airport Industrial Way is what this road is called. And we have an airport, in our airport master plan, we have an airport facility expansion plan for this section in here that accesses off this road. So in addition, Bill, the next section of this road is going to be built in the next 2.5 to 3 years. It's going to intersect this property, which then it will not be usable. Does that answer that question?
I could expand a little bit on the drag strip if you want to as well. So, and once again, I apologize for flipping some. But this area here will be able to handle street legal racing, drag racing, kind of the do it off the street programs that exist out there where you can do that. The national events, just too noisy at this location. Even though this does have the length to handle that, this is 4,000 feet and could handle it. It's just not, the noise is too intense at this location.
There's a big gap between street legals and a national event.
Oh, yeah, huge
So,
national events.
Right, that happens many times over the.
Yeah. I know.
Yesterday there were more than 200 racers at the.
Was it really?
Yes.
15 dates annually right now. That's right.
Of street racers.
No.
The street
Sportsman racers.
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. The top fuels.
No.
Huge noise. They'd never have that. You just can't handle it at this location. I'm sorry, I don't want to represent. Yes, sir. Mr. Drake.
There's an exhibit in here that talks about karting memberships. Explain how that.
So the karting facility here, and Joel, you could probably talk about the karting membership a little bit more. There is potential to do a membership based on this, but it can also have open public dates as well.
So if my kids like to ride their go-karts, do I have to pay $2,400?
No.
Concession.
I'm sorry?
Concession cards. So what we've learned from Tim in his study, and I don't know, Tim, you're still here, but he has a very, our TBC, if you want to jump in here and talk about how important karting is. But you want me to talk? Okay. Karting to us is critical because every dad is not going to, their son may be a founder someday. They may want to be a founder, but their kids are not going to take advantage of the facility. But the karting is a feeding system. It's a critical profit center for the private side to support this public-private partnership. I'm not going to mention names of facilities, but we've done our due diligence, and any successful private road course has a karting track. And the design will be unique, and it acts as a dual purpose: profit, feeder system, family. It's critical. And I would say that any of that information that you have, the board, that is right now not being published. So we're still working on the numbers, and we did mention the number. I'm proud of that. That's one of the lowest.
Well, I'm less concerned about the number than what it takes to get access to the karting track. Do you have to be a member?
Well, for it to be, we're asking for a founders group, a membership, so they would have access for that membership. So there's a family membership in there as well.
What if I don't want to buy a membership? I just want to buy it and have my kid race.
You can.
So that's what I was after. I mean, you don't have to pay to get access to the track if your kid likes to drive go-karts.
And Andy can expand on that.
I think you nailed it right there.
Okay.
The public will have access to it. There will be a membership if people want to buy a membership to the facility. We won't talk about numbers.
But there is like a daily fee.
There can be, yeah, for that, and it'll be, so, there'll be carts there, so, this facility right here is a big cart house, that'll have carts at that facility. So.
Yeah, what a lot, I mean, if we're talking about karting, we can.
See, I just jump over all this, don't I? So, sorry. So, these are actually go-karts, so, and they're not the normal go-karts that you see, these are racing go-karts. And if I went all the way back to the initial slide, you'd see a picture. So right here, you see on this slide, you'll see it on the front cover of your booklets. Those are the racing carts.
There's two types of carts that facilities do. One's called shifter carts, and then one's called concession karting. So concession karting could be either electric or gas, depending. We haven't gotten that far as to know whether we'll have, what type of concession carts we'll have. But those are the carts that will be that will be for rental. So I mean, if a kid has a cart in their garage and they want to come operate it, we don't know if that's going to meet our safety standards. What tracks usually do is they'll have concession carts that are available for rental. And the membership is going to be for the shifter carts that Andy just pointed out. You know, they'll go 70, 80 miles an hour, and they're a whole new ball game, whole new level of performance.
I don't have the guts for those this year. I have to stay on the design side. Any other questions? Can I open it up to everybody?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
You talked about potentially hosting what you called sanctioned events, which I assume are large. What is the seating capacity? Because just in this schematic, it doesn't appear that it's significant.
So
how would you handle that? Would you have portable seating?
Yes. So we try to stay on a natural basis to start with. You'll see this is all hillside seating here. This is terraced hillside seating. We then would have to go to temporary bleachers then from there. We don't want the look of bleachers out there. We don't, since you never design a facility for a single use, a large single use, right? So you bring in temps. So we use temporary above grade and then still keep all of the hillside seating. So. And spectator mounts too. There'll be spectator mounts, all different locations, infield, along the outside here.
If you've asked for 10 million investment from the PFD,
right.
If you were to get 4 million of that, what would you do? What would that mean to the project? If you were to get 0, what would that do to the project?
So, I hate the 0 number, but it basically means that we've got to scale back to public facilities. That's bottom line. There's only so much that the private center can pay for, right? Especially when you start looking at maintenance. So, on a long-term basis, we'd have to scale back quite a bit on the public facilities. So, and the public access. And the revenues go down too. So yeah.
So, just to kind of add, there is another circuit that was constructed fairly recently, Circuit of the Americas, which is in Texas. They host around the Formula 1. Their largest attendance at a Formula 1 event at the Circuit of the Americas was 270,000. Indy is much smaller. I mean, overall, providing a huge influx of cash.
Yeah, I don't want to provide parking for that many people.
Yeah, that's for sure. But if having gone to some of the large motorsports events, like big endurance races that are held in various racetracks around the country, people make it a big family camping weekend. They'll do qualifying on Thursday, practice on Thursday, qualifying on Friday, do one type of race on Saturday, and one type of race on Sunday. So you're talking about an event that can easily draw tens, hundreds of thousands.
I think our projections to give you an idea of the of a larger event is on 30,000 range. I think we've presented that to you before. So 30, I think it could go to 40. You see that locally here. So.
In your dreams, yeah.
Is that a card event, or what kind of event is that?
That's an IndyCar race, so that's actually
Indy, right? It's not card anymore. So.
Other questions? Okay. I guess, is it okay if I open it up to the crowd, or do you want to do it?
No, we have a list of speakers.
Oh, very good.
We'll go through the designated speakers that have signed up on the list.
Hey, Mike, I think the desire is to let the crowd ask questions, not to give public comment on their support for the project. Is that what you're looking
Yes,
to do?
so we can do it either way. I think that...
How about we separate those two things, so
I could like
there
to
are
questions.
from the public that they would like to ask, and then we'll do the support.
I'd like to thank the KPFD for having this meeting today. My name is Don Berry. I'm a member of the Washington State Hot Rod Hall of Fame. I've been racing at this facility since 1972. Thought it was interesting that the racing history goes back to the 50s, really. And that was the Handlers drag racing that started that event. Their first. They also have road racing back then. Yeah. I sympathize or empathize with all of these stories about how it's family and this. The problem I have is I feel a little like a red-headed stepchild that wasn't invited to the dance. So they said no draggers. So our facility is going away. The road is going to cut right through it. There's 2 event facilities in the Northwest. This will cut them in half. So,
are there any other questions for the presenters?
Oh, we had one right here. Sorry.
Yeah, I had a question about permits for usage. I know there are other facilities in the region that have seen their utilization kind of cut because they couldn't get the permits to run events every weekend because of noise concerns or whatever. I would imagine you're in a much better position here because you're adjacent to the airport and you're not in a noise sensitive area, but have you considered all that?
Yeah, I hate to say it in front of the owner, of the airport, but that's correct. It's the bigger noise generator. We don't have any. You want to talk about the usage? We don't have any usage restrictions here. So on how many events? Oh, can I go back there first? I had first one back here.
Actually, this is directed to folks from the port.
Sure.
From what I have been told, the original deed for the port permit was given by the U.S. Navy with the idea that it was going to be used for the public. So talking about this road going through the existing facility, does that still meet the mandate of why that property was given to the port? Is there been any discussion?
The port could talk about that. My understanding is it does. It still meets the use requirements.
Well, I think also open that up for CEO Jim Crawford right here. No discussion on that, folks?
Well, I mean, it's still port property for the purpose of industrial development. That's the primary purpose of that property.
Very good.
And that road right there, and they've known for many years that the purpose of that road is to open up hundreds of acres of property. So it still remains in.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, you had one right.
For this site, the government entity that has jurisdiction for all the land use permitting is the city of Bremerton, is that correct? Does that include timber harvest?
That's another port question. For timber harvest, Axel, regarding what's in our lease is the port is. Are you talking about revenue from timber harvest?
Any timber that we harvest, if we're going to develop a piece of property, goes back into port revenues.
I'm just wondering to what extent the county or State Department of Natural Resources would have involvement in timber harvest in order to clear the remaining acreage.
Anytime we do a development, it's permitted. Every time we do anything, we have to go through SEPA, NEPA, and it's
fully permitted.
Has that been done yet, or is that yet to be done for the?
On this particular facility?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian has already done and got all the permitting done.
Okay.
The final permits are
Issued by the state.
yeah, basically Rule 5 permits they call them. That's where we'll get to eventually. That'll be like the final permit. We have land use permit already, so we'll have to get to a Rule 5 permit at the end, which will control some of that. I can kind of tell you that there has been a concept change a little bit on how that would take place. What we're looking at now is more limbing up of a lot of the trees versus harvesting. Some of the areas where we don't have to have as much visibility, we would leave the trees. So some of the areas we probably don't have much chance to save, like this area, which is a solid skid pad. But other areas back in here, we could save quite a few of the trees and just limb up. So.
And then another question, if I may.
Sure.
You haven't been tasked with doing anything concerning the capacity of State Route 3 along there?
We have been, actually. So
Okay.
in the
Can you
original
address that?
land use plan, there were some constraints. So, and we still have those constraints in place. And those constraints include traffic studies. Once we define the final users, the final usage, we have to go back and modify the traffic study.
So a traffic study is has partially been done and will be completed when you have more use information?
Best way to say it right there. That's absolutely right. So, way back in the back.
I think it'd be more clear on the drag race portion, use of the track compared to what you have available for the new facility compared to what's being used now.
Yeah, you know, things.
What's going on there now, we don't have copies.
It's a great question, and you know, if it's the elephant in the room, I know drag racing has been a heritage for decades, and the uses that are here are maximizing the given piece of ground that we have to work with. One of the major reasons why the port hasn't developed this land is because of topography, and that creates a huge development cost. And so you can kind of tell it's a weird piece of land. It's got some wetlands, so it really crunches the use into a narrow area that has topography, which topography is bad for development, but it's good for a road course. And so you don't see a circle track on here either, and that's kind of like my love. I mean, I love circle tracks, but there's no room for it. There's no room. It's an approved use, but given after spending 6 years, Axel said 7. Has it been 7? After spending that amount of time on this project, we've done feasibility studies on every use that you see here. This isn't just thrown on a piece of paper. This is studied, vetted, market demand studies, what's possible here. And every use that you see maximizes the ground and with the mind of revenue. Because I can't go to an equity partner and say, hey, you want to lose money? Let's put in a cool circle track. It can be used just for a few months a year, but we'll have to pay on the capital costs year round. So do you want to lose money, Mr. Equity Partner? They're going to laugh at me. So I have to make sure that I'm responsible to equity partners, but I do have in mind the heritage of drag racing. I do. And that's why the compromise is doing street legal drag racing on the straightaway. That's the best we can do. Yes, sir.
Brian, let me just comment for a minute for everybody looking at this picture right here. I realize that it's flat up there on the screen, but if you go to the facility, in reality, it's not flat. It is geographically challenged with elevations, and that is why it's not really suitable for industrial building, so because of the topography. So that track design you're looking at was created by a track designer from Europe who has designed some of the top tracks in the world. And so, again, Brian was just talking why is there an oval and so on and so forth. Just know that picture looks flat, but not a lot.
I want to add on that. I was there when we leased that piece of property to Circuit of the Northwest or Bremerton Motorsports at that time. And we studied it, we looked at it as far as development was concerned, and it did not lean to development because of the terrain and all of that. So that was one of the major decisions why we went ahead and leased it to them.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks, Nancy.
What's the topography of that straightaway?
It goes uphill until you hit the first red mark, and then it slowly, gradually goes down.
Like the existing track does?
Well, we couldn't, without grading, we couldn't be.
Have you walked the site, sir?
No, I haven't.
Why don't you go walk the site?
How many feet of elevation on the road?
110.
110.
Right. The lowest part is here.
Okay.
And then the highest part is where I mentioned the red line. There's 110 feet of elevation difference.
Okay. As you know, the 1% rule on drag races, drag strips are tough sometimes. Okay.
All right, let's move to public comment.
Number one on the list is Pete Crane. Pete, are you still here? I'm still here.
Regarding public comment, we're at 8:07 right now. What we have done with all public comment for these projects is give you a 3-minute time limit.
Okay, I'll make it real quick. Make it quicker than I was going to. First of all, thank you for being here. You guys have suffered many of the meetings, and I appreciate what you're doing for the Kitsap County. It's this nobody ever thanks you for that. So let me thank you for that. Also, I'm not here to talk about the details of this. I'm not qualified to do that. There are far more people qualified. I just want to talk about economic development. I mean, I've spent most of my life in Kitsap County. I came over here as the trade coordinator for the community impact. And I've worked on the Economic Development Council for 20 years. I was on local college board. I was on library board. I think I know something about economic development. These projects don't come along every day. I mean, you have an opportunity to do something for the community that not everybody gets to do. There's an expression that I heard recently which made a lot of sense to me, and that was, it's a Native American expression that says, how is this going to impact my grandkids' grandkids? How is this going to impact my grandkids' grandkids? People we will never, ever know. They will go to this facility. They will go to the STEM classes. They will go to concerts there. They will watch the racetracks. They will do the stuff that is going to be stuff that we don't get to do. They will not know that you had the opportunity to vote for this because you did this back in 2019. You did this many years before they were born. Think about your grandkids' grandkids when you make this vote, because this is what Kitsap County should be doing, and we have the opportunity to do it once, only once. Thanks.
Sorry, next up, Carla, you've already spoken. Are you still here? No, I think she spoke her piece. Jessica Worley.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. I've never talked in public like this. I was in the Marine Corps and stuff like that, so I've done presentations and stuff, worked for the Navy. The large industrial facility in Kitsap County, I don't have lawyers, but I can't speak for them. But that's where I work. Personal, I just want to blow away the myth that racing is white, rich men. You guys are awesome. You keep the sport alive, but I am a middle-class white woman, and I like to go fast. That's the bottom line. I have a Toyota 86. I just bought it. God knows I want to do, what is it, 112 or 120? How fast does a Toyota 86 go? He probably knows back there. I want to go that fast. I grew up on dirt bikes. 13 years old, I was riding out in Tahuya, moved up to ATVs, four-wheelers, and then Jeeps. Now I got too many of those. I was in law enforcement, so I can attest to the fact that cone courses are completely different than road courses when you're doing training. Cone courses don't give you what you need to for high speed. There's that. For sports and stuff, I came out of the Marine Corps, my body's broken, my knees are bad. I can't go run across a football field or a soccer field. I can't play baseball really anymore, but I can drive fast in a car and get my adrenaline rush, you know what I mean? Like, That's what I got. That's all I got. I can't go up and down stairs. I can't do any of that kind of stuff. For STEM and teaching, I can tell you that anything that the kids get out here for school and training and stuff like that will be good for the local large industrial facility the Navy owns. It'll be great for that. It'll bridge that gap. We'll have people coming in working for us that are first-time employees, kids and stuff, that'll have mechanical experience. They'll be able to be paid more initially starting in the shift over there. For grudge matches and stuff like that. Like, I'd love to pull up to somebody in a parking lot and be like, I bet mine goes faster. Okay, well, on Tuesday night, they have open track day for $100, $50, hopefully less than $100. Wink nod. And you can go out there and you can do a time trial race, not head to head, because that's kind of dangerous for new people, but you go, well, I did 5 minutes around the track and I did 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Well, if I win, then I get a little trophy or something. I don't know. Whatever. Driver's training and safety. I always push every vehicle I own. There's a trooper, there's a deputy still here. I go out to a dart somewhere in a back road and drive my cars as fast as I can. So I know what they do in a situation. I go out in the snow and I do dumb stuff in my Jeep. So I know what they can do. I do these on public. I used to do them on public roads.
Do it in Mexico now.
But yeah, Mexico. But here in this track, I can go out, maybe snow courses, snow track racing. You can take your Jeep out there, whatever, car training, stuff like that. You could do that. Learn what your car does in a bad situation. That's what I would like to see in this.
I got that training in the suburbs of Chicago.
There you go. See, I did this last winter snowpocalypse. I drove my Jeep all over the county, never got stuck. Why? Because I go out and drive my Jeep in that kind of environment before I need to go somewhere. Tourism, I drove to Spokane right after work, got off work, drove straight to Spokane, got a hotel room, stayed the night, raced on a track, went out to dinner with my friends, and then jetted home. That was like a day and a half. That's tourism. I spent money, got dinner, stuff like that. That's blue collar racer in their stock car that I blew up.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The 3 minutes went by.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. You did an excellent job.
Okay, up next, Stanford Farp. Thanks for signing up, Stanford.
You're welcome. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. I have better days, but thank you.
Move a little farther over.
I know. Right. So,
no, that's all right.
Whoa, that's a little too far. I just want to thank the entire board for the consideration you've been giving. I think that it's really important to understand it's been a 7-year project and it's been vetted in different ways. I also think that there's no other project that's being represented in the group of projects that are tied to an economic potential development growth such as the Port Authority. It does not exist. You have the beginning of what was done correctly. The very best was hired to do that. He could have gone El Cheapo, but he did not. The one thing that's impressed me about Brian, he is a true vision maker. Please appreciate that. How important is it to make a vision and then to be able to sell it and have people who buy into it? Given that, I'd like to make a metaphor of the track and say that I believe that you're in the process of cutting an emerald. There are new facets that are going to be put on all the way through this. And if it's done right, it'll be done for the next 20, 30, or possibly 50 years. I didn't hear enough discussion about the importance of OEM and the ability to draw that kind of energy. Please do not undervalue that, because that is huge. You won't get that through a swimming pool. You won't get that through tracking out in the dirt. You won't get it through many of the other things being stated. And I think that, and I heard the discussion about going back to visit those sites. One thing that I would really recommend to you as people representing the community, go back to your criteria sheet first before you get embroiled in making decisions on a plus and minus account and everyone pulling, because everybody wants aid. You are representing the community at large, and that's an awesome responsibility. I think that I'm not his mother, so I better call him Andy and not Andrew. I think Andy had undersold something that I'd like to dive into just for a moment. He undersold the question about, well, would we be like Silverstone? Could we possibly be, is that the name of it? I don't know that we can be that anymore, and I appreciate the fact that he didn't oversell it to you, because that's what a speculator would do. But on the other side, please don't take it lightly that we are in a absolutely new period, never experienced before, with companies around us. We have, could I just have one more minute?
Keep going.
Okay. The fact that Microsoft is here, the fact that you have certainly presence of Google, but they're not scientists here. You have Amazon, you have Expedia that loves travel. You really are dealing with powerhouse things Silverstone was not dealing with. If you will support, the important thing is, there's a fellow by the name of Peter Senge who wrote The Necessary Revolution. He was in change management theory out of MIT, the #1 guy. Buying into a vision, supporting the vision is where the horsepower is. I really appreciate looking at this track, and I think that's extremely important. But that's not the gym. That's the beginning of the gym. That's where you bring the people together. That's where you save lives. That's where you teach people to do things, and you can race. But you're going to have world-class people that are going into what I call event-driven management. That means anything moves going to real-time capability. When I say real-time, I'm speaking about if you have driving cars and you want to know the weight factor next to you and the speed going, the ricochet over it, our cars are just going to get smarter to be able to critically make a decision. We want our kids growing up at a facility that will bring in passion. It's so far beyond learning to drive a car fast. It's the passion of learning and seeing what they're good at. And I would like to see a facility that helps them move on to carry that passion. So,
thank you, Stanford.
So that's what I have to say.
Last on the list is Jim Rothland, the CEO of the Port of Bremerton.
We'll keep it under 3 minutes. Back in 18...
I'm just here on behalf of the board to support this project, and the reason we support it creates economic development, it creates jobs, it creates educational opportunities, it creates technical expertise that isn't currently here, and it creates interest from businesses who are interested in that intellectual property that we hope start creating jobs all around that property as well. And it creates a benefit to the community. So those are the boxes that we check off for our mission, so that's why we support it the way we do. And in fact, we're putting $12 million of real estate into this project in support of what it's doing. So just want to hope you can help these guys out. And I also want to commend you guys. This has been here a long time watching it. It's a very long, tedious process, but it's very important, and it's going to benefit a lot of people. So I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Thank you.
That's it on the list.